I'm getting boxing. If you doing what you called to do, nobody can do it like Claressa. Come on, y'all, give me that round of applause.
Y'all, this isn't just another boxing headline or a messy social media moment. This is what it looks like when a public image starts cracking in real time and everyone is watching it happen. Right now, one name is everywhere: Claressa Shields. Not for a knockout, not for a championship, but for panic, control, and a spiral that seems to get louder by the day. Social media is on fire. Timelines are flooded with reactions, clips, and opinions. And suddenly, Claressa isn't swinging punches anymore. She's swinging at creators. The moment people started really talking about what she herself put online, something shifted. Panic mode kicked in. Channels were flagged, pages were reported, voices were threatened. Somewhere along the way, criticism stopped being feedback and started feeling like an attack. Instead of stepping back, Claressa pushed harder, trying to shut the noise down as if the internet has an off button. But here's the twist no one can ignore. While trying to silence creators, Claressa has started acting more like one herself. Viral dances, skits, flashy flexes. Influencer energy turned all the way up. Brand deals, creator checks. Spotlight. Chasing, boxing isn't the headline anymore. Attention is. The problem isn't that she wants attention. The problem is that she only wants it one way. Praise only, no pushback, no questions. No mirrors, then the story gets messier. Personal. Lives move to center stage. Rumors about married men start circulating. Papoose trends, not for music, but for association. Remy Ma stays silent while the internet does the talking, and suddenly what was once private becomes public spectacle. Even her legacy isn't untouched. Comparisons to Layla Ali and Alicia Baumgartner resurface. Questions about dominance, about power, about who's being avoided and why. Then comes the money talk. 8 million online, 2 million admitted. Just like that, trust cracks. Here's the hard truth. You can't demand the spotlight and then rage when it shines back. You can't mute the internet. You can only expose yourself trying. So the real question isn't whether Claressa Shields is great. It's whether she can survive the fame she asked for, or if it's already burning her alive.
Third thing, I am so smart and so intelligent. Can't nobody try to get down on me or snake me or anything. So y'all got to stop with that. I don't even like that narrative. I wish y'all would stop. It's like y'all just believe anything that anybody say.
Y'all, this isn't a comeback story. This is the sound of an empire creaking under its own weight. Quiet at first, then loud enough that nobody can pretend they didn't hear it. The internet woke up angry, curious, and restless, and one name. Set dead center in the storm, Claressa Shields. Not trending for belts, not trending for knockouts. Trending because control slipped, panic set in, and a carefully managed image began unraveling frame by frame. This isn't a fight night breakdown. This is a faceless autopsy of fame. It's about what happens when the spotlight stops flattering and starts exposing. For years, Claressa built her reputation on toughness. Unshakable, unapologetic. A champion who demanded respect and dared anyone to question it. But somewhere between the applause and the algorithms, the tone changed. The comments got louder. The reactions multiplied. And suddenly, opinions, normal, expected, inevitable opinions were treated like threats. What should have been noise became an emergency. What should have been critique became disrespect. That's when the first crack showed. At first, the pattern was subtle. A page disappeared. A video vanished. A creator went quiet. Then another. Then another. Whispers started circulating, channels flagged. Posts reported. Warnings sent. The message was clear, even if it was never spoken out loud. Talk about her the wrong way, and there will be consequences. The irony is that every attempt to shut the conversation down poured gasoline on it. The internet doesn't retreat. It reroutes. Here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. When you put your life online, you don't get to edit how people react to it. You don't get applause only. The mirror reflects whatever you place in front of it. And Claressa didn't just place highlights there. She placed everything. The relationships, the emotions, the late-night reactions, the arguments, the polls, the performative confidence, the moments that felt raw and the ones that felt rehearsed. Once it was all out there, the audience did what audiences do. They talked. Then the shift happened. The gloves came off, not in the ring, but online. Boxing stopped being the headline. Attention did. The posts got flashier. The tone got louder. The content got faster. Viral dances. Skits, reels designed to stop thumbs mid-scroll. Influencer energy turned up to 11. It wasn't subtle. It was strategic. Brand visibility, creator checks, algorithm love. The money. Trail was obvious. The question was never whether she could do it. The question was whether she could handle what came with it, because the applause didn't last. It never does. And when the comments changed, when praise turned into questions, something snapped. Tolerance vanished, patience thinned. Suddenly, criticism wasn't part of the game. It was sabotage, pushback wasn't dialogue. It was hate, and the response wasn't confidence, it was force. That's when the story veered into personal territory. Names started trending that weren't supposed to. Private situations became public narratives. And one association lit the fuse all over again, Papoose. A man known for staying low, moving quietly, keeping family matters sealed tight. A man still legally married to Remy Ma, a name that carries weight without chasing it. Silence on one side, noise on the other. And the internet did what it always does. It filled the gaps. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Relevance is a currency and controversy prints it fast. Papoose's name surged. Claressa's visibility spiked. Remy's silence spoke louder than any live stream ever could. The optics were brutal. When one person moves quietly and the other reacts publicly, the audience chooses sides whether anyone asks them to or not. The contrast was stark. Papoose appeared withdrawn, camera-averse, disengaged when he traveled to see his child. The reaction online wasn't relief, it was resentment. Every move interpreted. Every silence dissected. Suddenly, behavior once criticized and others looked painfully familiar. Attention-seeking disguised as accountability. Insecurity dressed up as strength. Then the legacy talk returned, sharper than before. Skills acknowledged, but dominance questioned. The comparisons resurfaced. Layla Ali, power without noise. Alicia Baumgartner, fire without filters. Names invoke not to erase Claressa's achievements, but to highlight the difference between commanding a room and demanding it, between being great and insisting you are. And then came the moment nobody could spin away, the money. Online, the number floated high, 8 figures, spoken with confidence. Repeated with pride, then the press conference happened. Cameras rolling, mics lev. And the admission landed like a punch nobody trained for, 2 million. Not 8, 2, the internet. Froze for half a second and then exploded. Not because of the amount, but because of what it represented. Credibility, consistency, the gap between the flex and the fact. Explanations poured in, bonuses, technicalities, but the damage was already done. When the story keeps changing, trust doesn't wait around. From there, the lens widened. Management decisions, promotional missteps, branding that screamed louder than it delivered, a supposed machine that felt more like a scramble. For someone claiming the highest throne, the infrastructure looked shaky. DIY energy where there should have been precision. Noise where there should have been strategy. Exposure without insulation. And here's where the panic made sense. Because when the narrative slips, control feels like survival. But control isn't power. Flagging pages doesn't erase questions. Striking channels doesn't rebuild trust. It confirms fear. It signals fragility. It tells the audience you're listening, but only to silence them. This isn't hate, it's consequence. Fame charges interest. Attention comes with invoices. And every time Claressa tried to muscle the conversation into submission, the conversation grew teeth, new platforms, new clips, new angles. The story didn't stop. It multiplied. The real tragedy here isn't talent wasted, it's focus lost. A champion built in the ring drifting into a digital maze. A place where validation refreshes by the minute and disappears just as fast. Where applause feels necessary instead of earned. Where criticism feels lethal instead of useful. The faceless truth teller watching from behind the mic knows this ending too well. You can be great and still lose the room. You can be loud and still unheard. You can demand respect and still fail to command it. The internet doesn't crown kings, it tests them. Right now, Claressa Shields isn't fighting opponents, she's fighting the echo. And echoes don't bleed, but they don't go quiet either.
Hey y'all. I'm getting ready to go to this event with Papoose. This is my look for today. I'll be posting pictures in just a second. I want to get on here to tell y'all to be happy, to be confident, to be beautiful, to be nice, to be kind, to be ambitious, to be different, you know, and don't let others discourage you from being who you really are. Love on yourself however you see fit. Know that when others are insulting you, it's because they feel that way about themselves. They are miserable. They need prayer. So instead of engaging back with negativity, just, block them and move on with your life.
The room grows quieter in part 2, not because the story settles down, but because its weight finally sinks in. By this point, the audience isn't just watching drama unfold. They're watching erosion, the slow collapse of boundaries between athlete, influencer, and spectacle. What once looked like confidence now reads as overcompensation. What once felt bold now feels defensive. And every move meant to regain control only tightens the spotlight instead of loosening it. This is where the panic stops being subtle. Behind the scenes, pressure multiplies. Every post is scrutinized, every caption dissected. Every moment of silence turns into a headline of its own. Claressa Shields no longer has just critics. She has an audience trained to expect chaos. And when an audience expects chaos, calm starts to look like weakness, so the clampdown intensifies. Creators begin whispering about warnings, sudden takedowns. Content disappearing without explanation. The atmosphere turns courtroom-like. People watch their words, save screenshots, backup files, and brace for impact. Not because they're lying, but because they're afraid of consequences. That's the moment public opinion shifts. People stop asking, "Is this true?" and start asking, "Why are you trying so hard to stop us from talking?" Power doesn't look like fear. Control doesn't look like panic. Confidence doesn't need enforcement. The contradiction becomes impossible to ignore. On one hand, Claressa demands respect as a generational athlete. On the other, she's locked in online warfare over comments, reactions, and opinions. The Hinsendi face. Two images collide and the collision isn't flattering. Champions don't chase validation. Legends don't argue with timelines. Icons don't need to threaten the room to own it. Then the relationships resurface again, heavier this time. Not as gossip, but as symbolism. Papoose remains silent. No posts, no rants, no live streams. Just absence, and absence in moments like this becomes power. While one side reacts publicly, the other lets the noise collapse under its own weight. Hovering over it all is the unspoken presence of Remy Ma, a reminder that legacy doesn't require constant explanation. Her name trends without effort. Her silence doesn't need clarification. That contrast cuts deeper than any insult ever could. The narrative hardens. This stops being about love, loyalty, or betrayal. It becomes about relevance. About who needs the spotlight and who doesn't need it at all. As the personal chaos escalates, the professional questions return sharper than before. Not framed as hate, but as analysis. The record gets mentioned. The wins are acknowledged. But the word dominance hangs in the air unanswered. Fans revisit old footage. Analysts rewatch fights. Comparisons resurface, not to diminish, but to contextualize. Layla Ali didn't need online theatrics to command respect. Elisa Baumgartner doesn't need to mute critics to feel validated. Then comes the avoidance narrative. The opponents who never materialize. The matchups that stall. The whispers that certain tests are being sidestepped. In boxing, perception matters almost as much as performance. Right now, perception is slipping. The money conversation refuses to die. 8 million becomes a symbol not of wealth, but of exaggeration. 2 million becomes a receipt not of failure, but of contradiction. Fans don't mind reality. They mind being sold a fantasy and then corrected under a microphone. Every revised explanation digs the hole deeper. Credibility once cracked doesn't reseal cleanly. The management angle grows uglier the longer. It's examined, promotional misfires, branding confusion, deals announced without follow-through, a record label nobody can trace, a promotional team unable to steer the narrative away from scandal. For someone claiming the highest title in the sport, the infrastructure looks alarmingly thin. The machine isn't protecting the fighter. The fighter is carrying the machine and dropping pieces along the way. This is where the tragedy sharpens. Not because Claressa lacks talent, not because she lacks opportunity, but because she's fighting the wrong battles. Instead of preparing for opponents, she's preparing for comments. Instead of sharpening her craft, she's sharpening clapbacks. Instead of letting wins speak, she's trying to shout over doubt, and the louder she gets, the clearer it becomes. This isn't strength, it's exhaustion. The internet smells fatigue. It always does. Every attempt to intimidate creators backfires. Every strike fuels a new channel. Every takedown births a mirror page. The conversation spreads from Instagram to TikTok, from TikTok to YouTube, from YouTube to platforms with fewer rules and louder voices. The story doesn't end, it mutates. Now the tone shifts from curiosity to concern. Not for the brand, but for the person. Living in constant reaction mode isn't sustainable. Needing applause isn't empowering. Measuring worth in views is a losing equation. Demanding loyalty from an audience that was never hired to protect you is a recipe for isolation. No insults are needed to indict this moment. The facts do enough damage on their own. The timeline is public. The posts are archived. The contradictions are documented. This isn't a hit piece. It's a pattern report. Here's the final truth of part 2. You can't bully perception. You can't litigate opinion. You can't copyright a narrative once you release it into the wild. Fame doesn't come with editorial control. It comes with exposure, and exposure is ruthless. Claressa Shields still has time. She still has skill. She still has the ring. But every day spent fighting the internet is a day not spent reclaiming the legacy she says she wants. Crowns don't land through declarations. They land through discipline, silence, and undeniable performance. Right now, the spotlight isn't honoring her. It's interrogating her. The jury hasn't reached a verdict, but testimony keeps piling up. The storm isn't over. It's getting organized. The third act opens with a reckoning. Quiet, cold, unavoidable. By now, the noise isn't chaotic anymore. It's structured. Threads are stitched together. Timelines aligned. Screenshots cataloged. What started as scattered reactions has hardened into a narrative that refuses to bend. The public isn't speculating anymore. It's reviewing evidence. At the center of it all stands Claressa Shields. No longer framed as a victim of internet hate, but as the architect of her own unraveling. Panic that once looked defensive now reads as desperation. Every attempt to reassert dominance online highlights its absence offline. This is where the illusion finally collapses. The strikes against creators didn't stop discussion. They standardized it. Reaction channels coordinated quietly, mirroring content, duplicating uploads, archiving everything. Fear evaporated. Defiance took its place. When suppression becomes obvious, resistance feels justified. The internet has seen this play before, and it never ends well for the one pulling the trigger. The tone shifts again from drama to diagnosis. People stop asking what Claressa is doing and start asking why. Why the fixation on commentary? Why the obsession with applause? Why the constant need to correct, respond, reframe? The answer hovers. Uncomfortably close. Because the story she wanted told was slipping away and she didn't know how to get it back. The influencer experiment reached its limit. Metrics betrayed her. Views spiked, then dipped. Engagement turned volatile. Praise came in bursts. Criticism stayed consistent. With every post chasing virality, the brand diluted further. The athlete blurred into the algorithm. The champion dissolved into content. In trying to be everywhere, she anchored herself nowhere. Meanwhile, silence continued to speak volumes. Papoose never broke it. Not once, no clarification, no denial, no counter-narrative, just distance. Distance, in moments like this, is devastating. It starves chaos of oxygen. Every unanswered question sharpened the contrast. One side broadcasting emotion, the other withholding it entirely. Looming over the saga was the quiet gravity of Remy Ma. No subtweets. No theatrics. No need to defend a legacy already cemented. Her silence wasn't passive, it was positional. It reminded the audience that relevance earned through history doesn't require daily maintenance. That comparison alone did more damage than any commentary ever could. As weeks dragged on, the boxing world grew restless. Not hostile, impatient. The sport doesn't wait. Belts don't trend themselves. While Claressa fought perception online, the division moved forward without her. Matchups formed. Rivals advanced. The ring stayed empty. Analysts stopped hedging. They started stating. Dominance turned into debate. Power was acknowledged but feared less. The phrase, greatest of all time, echoed hollow not because it was false, but because it was premature. Legends don't announce themselves. They're announced by absence. By the silence that follows retirement. By the void nobody else can fill. Claressa was still present, still posting, still reacting. Presence diluted power. The money narrative resurfaced one final time, stripped of shock but heavy with consequence. The gap between claims and confirmations became symbolic. Not of greed, but of performance. Fans didn't turn away because the number was smaller. They turned away because the story kept changing. Inconsistency is kryptonite in the court of public opinion. Management fallout arrived quietly. Insiders leaked frustrations. Promotional plans stalled. Opportunities cooled. Brands don't chase volatility. They avoid it. The louder the controversy grew, the fewer doors opened. The influencer lane promised fast returns but delivered long-term isolation. The pattern didn't need a verdict. It convicted itself. Power used defensively always looks weaker than power used sparingly. Control demanded is never as strong as control assumed. Respect enforced is already lost. What makes this tragedy cut deepest isn't the fall. It's the misdirection. Claressa never needed to fight the internet. She needed to ignore it. She never needed to prove relevance. She already had it. She never needed to silence critics. History does that on its own. Instead, energy was misallocated. Focus fractured. The crown she kept naming drifted further away, not because it was stolen, but because it was neglected. The audience didn't celebrate the collapse. It documented it. Records remain. And the record tells a story of a fighter who confused volume for authority, presence for power, and reaction for control. The storm didn't destroy her. She walked into it and tried to command the weather. Now the path forward is narrower, but it's still open. Redemption doesn't come from rebuttals. It comes from restraint. From letting the ring speak again. From choosing discipline over dopamine. From stepping back long enough for the noise to starve itself. Here's the final truth. The internet never forgets. You can rebuild almost anything except trust once you've tried to bully it. The spotlight hasn't dimmed. It has shifted. Whether Claressa Shields reclaims it as a champion or remains trapped inside it as a spectacle won't be decided by posts, strikes, or outrage. It will be decided by what happens next when the cameras stop rolling and the gloves go back on. This is where the story stops being entertainment and starts feeling personal. Because what you're watching isn't just a public figure under pressure. It's the slow realization that power can slip the moment you start fighting the wrong enemy. Betrayal doesn't always come from other people. Sometimes it comes from your own decisions, stacking quietly until they collapse all at once. The saddest part isn't the criticism. It's the loneliness that follows when applause turns conditional and silence grows louder than cheers. Trust doesn't shatter cleanly, it splinters. Fans feel it, creators feel it, even the people closest feel it. Once that fracture shows, no amount of outrage can glue it back together. This isn't about hate, it's about accountability. About what happens when the hunger for control overtakes the discipline that built the legacy in the first place. The internet didn't create this moment. It documented it, frame by frame. So if you think this is just drama, think again. It's a warning. Fame doesn't protect you from consequences. Influence doesn't replace integrity. Trying to silence voices only amplifies the ones you fear most. History remembers who stood firm and who panicked when the spotlight stopped being friendly. The choice hangs in the air. Double down on control and watch the walls close in, or step back, rebuild quietly, and let action speak again. One path leads to isolation. The other leads to redemption. Doing nothing is still choosing. Now it's on you.